This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Last week's fiasco for Greg Seitz leaves the rest of the field a monstrous gap to make up to David Holland. Even Soroy has to earn an average of 9 more points per race than Holland in hopes of hunting him down. Will the tides finally change here at Interlagos? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the PRL Formula 3 Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Open-wheel cars have become a big draw here at Interlagos. However, usually they're of the Formula 1 variety, but they're not the only type that race here, so let's head down to the track guide to learn a little bit more. Welcome to Autódromo's José Carlos Pache. Most fans and drivers simply know this place as Interlagos. Starting life as an absolute behemoth of a circuit, this Brazilian track was eventually truncated to the version you see today. Having hosted Formula 1 for roughly 3 decades, it's become very well known on the international stage. But it has also held rounds in the World Endurance Championship, as well as frequently seen Brazilian stock cars, motorcycles, and even truck racing. There's little difference between its two layouts, which includes the GP course and the Moto course, which simply adds a chicane to the end of the lap. In both cases, it's a tale of 2 circuits. The run past the start-finish line and into the Senna S, followed by the blast towards the Descida do Lago, are very high-speed sections that come back-to-back. Drivers will need to focus on top end in order to attack or defend. Expect most passes to happen in those 2 corners. But from Ferradura until Junção, the track suddenly twists itself into a mess of hairpins and frustratingly technical turns. This can make car setup a real compromise, and for the latter part of the lap, an absolute pain when dealing with traffic. Pit exit is also a narrow affair, so it requires drivers to take care when trying to maximize their outlaps. On the upside, with this being a modern F1 track, there's paved runoff in abundance at many of the fast corners. The passion of the Brazilian fans always comes out in force at races, and it's no wonder with this picturesque track sandwiched right amongst the neighborhoods of Sao Paulo. You see a little bit more about this track, but what about with these F3 cars today, Samuel? How is it going to be with that?
Well, it could be a little bit tricky, Joe. These cars skate around a little bit on the early laps, and as you can see with our overview of a track, our bird's eye view, this is quite a twisty circuit, especially at the start of a lap, which is not good if you're not a fan of cars getting all bunched together and really having to navigate your way through the opening couple of corners, because that is definitely what you have to do around here, and unfortunately sometimes it does result in contact. But if you survive out of a Senna S's, out of turns 1, 2 and 3, you have that long back straight, even though it's I guess that is a back straight. You have a couple of long straights after that, which can create some great overtaking opportunities. The middle section of this course, you're kind of just single filing along, and then of course the infamous front straight here, this ongoing left-hander curve. We've seen when it rains that some Formula 1 drivers even have difficulty getting around this that part of a circuit, even though technically I guess it doesn't have any corners. The great news is it gives us some great slipstream and battles, which can mean not only great passing opportunities going down to turn 1, but also some photo finishes at that finish line.
We'll be looking out for those today, but we also want to look out for you by reminding you of our sponsor. ready to compete against the financial markets. Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Let's also take a look at the championship here, starting with the drivers. As I mentioned, David Holland really has a stranglehold on things. David Soroy moves into second, with Greg Seitz having a terrible week last week here in the F3 Series. Santana and Clenard rounding out those top five, but really it's Holland's to lose. What about the team's championship here, Sam?
Well, the team's championship also looking like Advantage Zero has this sealed up as we get late into the season now. 75 points over Rust Racing. So Rust Racing should probably not worry about that as much and worry more about the challenge from behind. Advantage are also just 1 point behind them, and Davidson Motorsports and Lavoie Motorsport not too far behind either.
Yeah, it certainly is tight there from second to fourth. Now, today's race in particular, as we mentioned, we are in round 7 currently, and we have a 10-round season with all of them being 45-minute races. The cars are open setup, which we tend to discuss quite a bit because we've seen that affect the races and how the drivers have pace at the start or the end. There's a 20 incident limit, and there are bonus points there you see at the bottom that are up for grabs. Also, one last reminder that you're watching this on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe. Very easy to do so. All you got to do is click the big red button that says subscribe. It's just below the video here on YouTube, or it's on IESN's main YouTube page as well. Right now, we're in the dying stages of the qualifying, and Greg Seitz has been both the fastest in the warm-up and in the qualifying so far. Holland's not been able to run him down, and he's got about 2.5 tenths over David Holland, who is not out on track. So Holland won't get the pole or the pole bonus point.
Well, Holland had a crash a couple of minutes ago, so, well, yeah, he's not going to have time to get his car tweaked and get back out there. He's rolling it back out now, but obviously it's far too late. The checkered flag is on the session, and unless you're on a timed lap, you can't complete one. So Holland will get some extra track time as he rolls out of the pits right now, but he's not going to improve on second on the grid. Can anyone dethrone Greg Seitz, though? Rob Clenard and David Soroy have been fairly fast in practice.
Yeah, and you can see drivers are finishing things up, a few of them having some fun after the finish line. Raymond Day crosses, and where does he go from here? He improves and actually heads onto the second row. He moves to third.
Yeah, and David Soroy just came into the pit, so he's going to abandon his lap.
Santana doesn't improve. James David, who's in 13th, keeps it hugged up to that wall on the left side to get the shortest line. A 27.1 is his quickest, and that takes him up to 6th place.
And that's going to wrap it up, Joe. I think track's looking kind of quiet. Next car I see is David Holland. As we mentioned, he just rolled out of a pit. So, looks like Greg Seitz is going to have pole here at Interlagos.
Well, that's a good sign for him. Unfortunately, it was not the lack of pace that hurt him last week. We'll talk more about that here in a bit. But right now, let's go through the grid. Seitz on the pole with David Holland next to him. Those two have taken pole every single round so far this season. It's been swapping between them. Raymond Day will be starting in third with Rod Clenard in P4. David Soroy, 5th for him at the start. And James David will be starting in 6th. Jean-Francois Matt will be P7 and Nicholas Delp in 8th position. Then Kevin Santana, who is not able to go any higher, a bit low down for him, unusually low in 9th place. And Stephen Verity in 10th.
Yeah, and here in 11th place, we have Joshua Daniels at a 127.4, only a little over a second off pole. It is a shorter track around here, which is why we might be seeing a little bit of a mixed up grid because the times are so close. Owen McLaughlin is going to start 12th place on row number 7. It's Daniel Cranefeast and Eric LeBlanc. Sheldon Rosenbaum will start midfield in 15th place ahead of Christopher Richards. Armando Edwards starts 17th ahead of Sebastian Prohl. Lionel Duprat and Paul Wildridge, actually that's a relatively new name there, Joe, so I think I can get off with butchering it once. He'll start 20th.
21st goes to Andy Spicer with Tyler Gore in 22nd. Then you got Charles Sumner in the 23rd position. David Cristelli will be starting P24 and Mike Richter in 25th. Daniel Barnett will start in 26th. David Hebert 27th. Jay Steffi 28th. The last driver to put a time in is Matthew Hall in 29th. Felton will be starting, Aaron Webb will not be starting. It looks like he's not in the server. And Matthew Gunderson will be starting. So we'll see 32 cars take the green, hopefully, as we wait for the last of them to grid up, including Greg Seitz, who is yet to work his way out to the grid. Let's take a look at the weather real quick here, Sam.
Yeah, I'll bring that up on screen for you. A bit of a cooler day here today. Joe, if you're not happy with your qualifying position, this is not a bad place to start from the pits. You avoid all the twisty, narrow opening couple of corners, and pit exit pretty much drops you out on the back straight heading into turn 4, so you don't lose a lot of time either.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I wonder if we'll see anybody try to elect for that. But nope, doesn't look like it's the case because everybody's out there. Engines start to rev. Lights are up. Green flag is out as they take off. Oh, it is a horrible start for Seitz. Already Holland trying to come up the inside. Seitz tried to cover him off, but there was just nothing doing as he was already out of the barn. Behind them, everybody trying to get sorted out through the Senna S. This is where things can get a little shaky. In fact, it looks like we got an accident in the back even.
Yeah, Andy Spicer and Paul Wildridge have gone off. They started both in the middle of the field. But yeah, Joe, just the short subvert they have into that first corner. If you get a good run on the inside on the even-numbered positions, such as David Holland in second, that can actually benefit you more than the guys on the prime side of the grid with the racing line. And that's what we ended up seeing happening, and that's how Holland's got the lead.
One more incident out of Desida del Lago. David Cristelli finds himself backed into the wall. Didn't quite see what caused it, but he's got it going once again. You can see the leaders currently have Holland up at the front. Seitz is getting chased, see if he can get him back. But they've also got Rod Clenard in there, and they're pretty tightly packed. You talked about the slipstream on the front stretch, Sam. I wonder if we could see these three positions change before we get into turn 1.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. And of course, as you mentioned, Joe, this conversation seems to come up every week of who's running less win on their car. Well, for 90% of a lap, you want a lot of win on your car. It's a very twisty infield here. This is where you do not want any of that window. You can carry a lot more speed down this front straight and try and make a move into turn 1. Greg Seitz not close enough to make anything happen on David Holland, though. So Holland leads lap 1. Of course, we don't know how many laps this race will be. It is timed.
Yeah, and so far it's a little bit cleaner back through the Senna S for the second time for all the drivers. So we watch them head down to the Desida del Lago. Another go to the outside from Greg Seitz. He's on the attack on Holland. Didn't quite make it stick though. Oh, he's got a great run here.
Here we go. This is a passing opportunity. Down the inside is preferable, but that's why David Holland defended there. But Greg Seitz doing a way of a job to stay there on his outside. Finally has to give up a ghost, and boy, Rob Clenard gets quite close there.
Yeah, I think he actually had to check up a bit because he saw that Seitz was changing lanes at the very last moment. And because of them battling, here comes Soroy back and forth along with James David right in the tow.
Yeah, no one opting to use a Lewis Hamilton line in the hairpin yet, and that's probably a good thing, but we'll see if that changes late on the race. So who gets a better run down the straight here? Well, we saw Holland take the lead last lap, going through the sorry, no, we saw Holland defending to hold on to the lead last lap, going through the infield. Greg Seitz wasn't able to make it happen at this part of the circuit, so maybe that is an indication that Greg is carrying quite a bit of win.
And I see Owen McLaughlin off the pace and dropping down, and Richards is in the pits. Ooh, so a few things must have happened that we missed down there. Not exactly sure what. You can see some of the other cars with damage already in the pit lane, which is a good enough segue, I'd say, for us to check out some of those replays and see if
I told off on that, Joe, as we got spin in the pits, but also battle for the lead. Greg Seitz trying exactly what he did last lap on David Holland, but you try the same thing twice, you get the same result twice, and Holland stays ahead.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to make passes through here. So before they get back to that long stretch to the line, let's quickly head to the replay of Andy Spicer and see what happened with him, since we know he was involved in that first corner melee.
Yeah, and I think he qualified a little bit better than the driver he was involved with. So my guess is it starts with him, maybe even a bit of contact in turn one, and the rest had nowhere to go. But let's get a closer look here. Oh, maybe went off track.
It looks like he went 3 wide and just eventually didn't work out. But let's come back live, because I think Seitz has got a great run. And in fact, he's already side by side as they come up into turn one. He's got the inside of the first apex, but can he complete the job through the second one? Way tight through there, so Holland can't carry the speed. In fact, he might have Rod Clenard making an attempt on him as they come down to the Descida del Lago. Seitz would love that if those two would start battling, but he's not going to get that sort of help. Clenard backs out of it and even goes defensive to try and keep Soroy behind.
Yeah, Clenard caught Holland in the middle of turn 3 at the worst possible time. He had to back out again. That's the second time we've really seen that. Clenard have a good run on the guy in second, but have to back out because he just caught them at the wrong time. So, but you know what? He's still on third, and as you mentioned, he's also having to be a bit defensive with Soroy behind him. So yeah, on the opening lap, like you mentioned, we actually saw the 2 incidents kind of take place. We saw one car go on the grass and spin, and we're seeing more stuff.
In the background, Verity had a problem. Oh, and he's hit more cars. There's at least 3 cars I'd say he's run into in this incident. Well, this is going to start with him battling with Kevin Santana here. And there you see the spin, and that is LeBlanc that he gets into initially. And then on top of that, it looks like he gets clattered into by Cranefoos. And then as he's trying to collect himself, poor Josh Daniels is in that red and black car. I'm going to watch Daniel's view since he came up to it last. Well, there's the very end of it.
Yeah, let's come back live, Joe, because the battle for the lead is still on. David Holland has got a nice run on Greg Seitz. He's going to look on the outside of him, trying to come down into turn 4. They get very close, but they don't encounter the same misfortune as the Ferrari teammates. But they are still side by side as they come back up a hill now. Greg Seitz with half a car in front, but David Holland with that racing line on the inside, and that could pay off, but let's see how ambitious. Oh, Seitz kind of closes the door on Holland there. He has to back out of it, and Seitz holds on to position number 1. 5 cars now in this lead train.
Yeah, Holland in second, Clenard in third, Soroy fourth, and David in fifth. What's interesting is third, fourth, and fifth have not changed at all. It's just been the top 2 swapping back and forth. And you know, it's not just the Ferrari teammates they need to worry about the example of, but last week it was hard fighting like this that caused netcode between Seitz and Holland. And that's what ended Greg's race, unfortunately. So he has to hope that we don't get the same thing twice.
Yeah, that was down in Phillip Island, going through the second corner. It looked like there was a car length between them, a car width between them rather, but there was contact between them. But now we might be seeing a challenge for third place there in the background. Yeah, David Soroy, Rob Clenard side by side, but Clenard holds on to it. The problem is those two that do that allows the leaders to run away. And I don't think Holland's got as good of a run on Seitz this time, but we'll see.
Meanwhile, on screen, Soroy's got a great run on Clenard, who's having some connection issues of his own. He's going to finally make that one stick. Clenard gets demoted to 4th, while David keeps watching with just an eager eye on this one. Meanwhile, you can see as we've switched back to Holland and Seitz, Holland did take a little bit of a look into the Citadel Lago, but it didn't quite pan out for him. He's still clinging to the rear wing of that number 74.
Here they come up a hill out of that downhill dip where we saw the carnage a couple of laps ago. So Holland and Seitz are starting to have their own race as the battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th kind of backs that back up a little bit, almost breaking up into a MotoGP formation here where you get several little packs forming throughout the track. Which ones will be up for grabs as they head into turn 1 to start lap number 7? Well, the lead could very well be. Holland is right in the slipstream of Greg Seitz, but no, I think it might be a little bit too late there. What about 3rd place?
Yeah, that's going to stay put as well. Before we duck away, though, I want to keep an eye on this because, again, we get a long run coming up to the Descida del Lago and lap traffic because Andy Spicer's coming out. I think he's going to manage to stay out of the way of the 2 leaders. That isn't a guarantee, though, for Greg Seitz as he had to go very defensive on Holland. No change behind them. Let's head back farther in the pack now because I think we're out of the action for this group. Gonna check out between Rosenbaum, Gore, and McLaughlin as they come down to the Descida del Lago. That's Rosenbaum in the yellow machine, black for Tyler Gore, blue there for McLaughlin, but they're going to stay in line.
Tyler Gore's had a whale of a race so far. He started 22nd.
Whew, yeah. is a nice little gain considering we only had 7 laps. They work their way now into the infield. Looks like they've calmed down a bit. I'm keeping half an eye on this that our viewers can see, and also half an eye on my screen for Holland because he got a decent run out of the junction. Yeah, let's head over to Holland because he's starting to gain quickly here on Greg Seitz. That rust car, unfortunately, is going to have to go defensive, and he's very shallow into the corner. And just a nose ahead for Holland is going to be enough for him to get up to the lead, but I don't think this is done with.
Yeah, and at the same time, 4th place traded hands. David got it from Clenard, but let's see what happens for the battle for the lead, because as you mentioned, Seitz goes to the outside. He's half a car length ahead, and this is kind of how close they were when they came together last week at Phillip Island. So Holland gets a better run out of turns 4 and 5, but they're still drag racing up the hill into the right-hander. Holland throws it into the long ever going on right-hander here. And he might actually still have track position. Oh, boy, they got close on exit there.
Yeah, they did. There was just inches between them. So Holland holds him off. Seitz has got to be asking, what's he got to do to make something stick through Ferradura? That's that double apex right-hander that we were talking about, because he's tried it on the outside, he's tried it on the inside, and neither one has worked out. And Gunderson is off the track. This is the number 33 car out of Descida del Lago.
And he had been having a good race to that point. He'd started 31st, was up into 19th.
He was in a 3-wide fight here. And then looks like whoever that was in the magenta and yellow car backed out, but he just gets on the throttle a little too hard with the curb bouncing him around. The Canadian finds himself in the grass. He gets it going without hitting anything, but that's the number of positions lost.
All right, back to the Holland and Seitz show, because they're going side by side down the back straight again, with Seitz having the run into turn 4, trying to make that outside work. Uses a little bit of the off track. Got to be careful he doesn't do that too many times. He'll accumulate some incident points. But this time, Seitz is not drag racing Holland up a hill. He has his car in front. So for now, this position belongs to 74, but I'm sure that's going to change again.
What's also interesting is if you look behind them, you can see every once in a while that white and black car, that's David Soroy. He's distanced himself from Clenard, who continues to have some more connection issues. It's about a second and a half, and he's clinging to the back of Holland. Well, maybe not clinging, but he's certainly keeping the pressure on.
Yeah, well, the top 9 cars are still covered within 8 seconds, which isn't that bad considering we're, coming to complete lap 9 of this race. And so all of these positions could change considering the fact we still have a round of pit stops coming up later. How many of these drivers just hanging back here are trying to save fuel? We know the 2 leaders aren't because they're side by side again with Holland on the outside of sides as they head off into the first corner.
We got to stay with this battle. Oh, and this time it got a little chippy out there. Sights had to get out of things, and Soroy's got a great run around the outside of the Curva de Sol. As they come down the Retta Aposta, momentum in favor of the 19 means that he is going to be fully ahead by the time they hit the braking. No attack from Sights. He falls from the lead down to third now.
Yeah, we can try and get a replay of this, Joe. I'm not sure that this was contact. I'm not sure that it was intentional either. I think maybe Holland had a little bit of oversteer through turn 2 and Sights kind of overreacted to it. I don't know. I'm sure there's 2 different stories to be told there.
Yeah, I didn't think that there was contact either, but there was a definite reaction from Sights that he felt the need to bail out of things. Now, I understood that we have got another issue with Paul Wildridge. This is out of the Senna S.
Now, he was involved in that crash at the very start of a race.
He's going to lock him up there. You can see that puff of smoke. He's off track trying to collect it, and well, unfortunately, the car just never came back to him. He didn't hit anything. He gets it going. I think Greg Sights might be trying to take this second place back.
He needs to.
Looking to the inside. Yeah, he really does. And that's going to be a relatively easy pass compared to what he experienced with Holland. He's now through on Soroy. But you're right, 1.2 seconds up to Holland. This is not good for the 74.
What Sights does not want to do is get involved in the battle with this position for Soroy and lose time to Holland. And so that's good that he was able to hold on to second place there. So what that 74 car really needs to do this time around is have a really good middle sector so that he kind of breaks the draft, breaks the slipstream to David Soroy by the time they get back around to the front straight, and he doesn't have to worry about him. The problem is David Soroy is good. He might not be able to do that.
Yeah, this will give us a good idea, depending on if Sights continues to fight with Soroy or not. Because if Holland stretches away, that means he's broken the slipstream and naturally is faster on race pace than Sights, which could be the death knell. But there's still a lot left to go here today. We're only 15 minutes in, so you can't call it over yet. As they come up the front stretch, let's continue to watch this, but just an update. The drivers we've lost so far, Verity has DNF'd, LeBlanc is out of the race, Matthew Hall is as well. Spicer and Castelli have come back out on track, but they are many laps down due to having to take repairs.
Yeah, that was a good lap there by Sights, actually. He's able to pull away from Soroy and not lose complete contact with Holland. Meanwhile, we're taking a look at Santana in the 666 here, running in 9th position. Oh, and someone off ahead of him.
Yeah, that was James David. Oh, that was our 5th place car. This is a lone car incident. The 89 with a big swatch of oversteer here. And who was that trying to get around? I think that was Jean-Francois Matt. Well, no, it was Day. It was Raymond Day. Oh, great avoidance there. Day with lightning hands to give himself 5th place. Kept it on track, kept it pointed forward. Fortunately, he's about 3 seconds behind Clenard now.
Yeah, his teammate. But Clenard actually is trying to move himself up into a podium position. He's battling Soroy. Soroy is not worried about Sights anymore. Sights has really gapped himself from that, and Greg Sights is actually doing a good job at reeling David Holland back in. The battle that's on right now is this one for 3rd place between Soroy and Clenard.
Yeah, credit to Sights. He's using that qualifying pace to great effect, but on board with Soroy. Looking back at Clenard. Oh, wow, Rod backed out of that relatively early. Guess he is not as eager to try and overtake. Wonder if he's been watching what's been going on ahead here, Sam, and he's thinking long term that he doesn't want to battle necessarily. Nope, throw that out the window. There he goes down to the inside. He was just waiting for right here down into the descent of the Lago, and that's going to give Clenard third.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the lap times of our two leaders in front of us, Joe, as we see Clenard holding on to third. And Greg Sykes did have a really good lap last lap. He ran a 126.8 rather, which I think is one of our fastest laps of the race out there, if not the fastest. So he definitely is getting a move on and trying to get this race to swim back in his favor.
If we could go back roughly a little over a minute ago, Charles Sumner unfortunately had a really bad incident. Here you can see he's getting repairs right now. He's within the pit window, but he's got so much damage on the front of the car. Might have to fast forward a little bit. This happens out of the final corner. Here we go. This comes out of the junction, so should be coming up here in just about 10 seconds. He's going to lose the rear end, and I'm trying to figure out who this is that comes up and hits him. Looks like this is Lionel Duprat, actually. There's a nose now, and now there's not. Well, thankfully, they don't have to worry about his legs here in the virtual world. That certainly doesn't help the way the car handles.
Yeah, and that's the other good news is that if either of them had to tow it from there, it's a short run to the pits, but as you mentioned, a lot of damage.
Now, Lionel Duprat looked like the damage wasn't quite as big on his side because even though initially we saw that wheel go out, it's put itself back into place. That's not magic. That's just his side didn't really register the damage quite the same way from the server. But on screen, this is the battle between Edwards and Felton. This is for 15th position.
Yeah, and Felton wasn't able to turn the lap in qualifying. He's worked his way all the way up from 30th to get here. So first half of his race has gone well. He'd like a couple more positions, I'm sure.
Well, it gets harder as you go through the field and hit those quicker drivers. You can see not nearly as fast through that portion as Edwards, who catches up to Duprat now. Working their way through that infield. Let's stay with this fight. But just an update. I think Holland saw sights coming, and he's turned it up because it stayed at about 1.2, 1.3 seconds for a couple laps now.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a bad lap that Sights just had, though. 127.3. Still, I'm sure most of the field would love to run a 127.3, but it's not the kind of lap time you're going to run Holland down with.
And there goes Edwards, past Duprat. Managed to get a great run. Didn't even really need the slipstream on the run up the hill. So that's going to give him 14th position now. Looking through the field to see if there are other battles happening up at the top. It looks like not so right now. Though Santana, did he chase down Delp recently here? So he's closed this in from a much bigger gap before. Santana up to 8th. Remember, he qualified 9th, and we made a remark about how that's not usually the place that you see him in. He tends to be in the top 5. Well, I'd say that he's gunning for that because now that he's caught up with Delp, we ride on board, we'll get a sense of how big the slipstream is.
And as you mentioned, Joe, the pit window is open. So, and here we go. Santana's in.
Prophetic words there. Oh, he has to really get it woed up in time for the cones. Hopefully he didn't speed into the pits. But he does find his stall. Curious to see who's going to be taking tires. Let's watch. No tires.
Yeah. I mean, track temperature is cooler, but I mean, there are some turns that go on forever at this circuit, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple cars take tires.
Yeah, it could be another mixed bag on that. He returns to the track. So we go back to this battle for third. So Roy And number 19, who we ride on board with, chasing the 24 of Rod Clenard. And they're starting to hit some traffic as well. Jay Steffi just overtaken by our 2 leaders. I wonder if he could play a role in this.
He might not, but any number of these lap cars could. It's a relatively short circuit around here, Joe, so that will be a factor in the second half of this race, as we're only just really now approaching the halfway point, and he's actually going to pull into the pits right there, the lap cars, so that will mean this battle for third can continue uninterfered for now.
Yeah, probably a smart call from Steffi. Knew that he was going to be held up just as much as the leader, so might as well come in. We're past halfway at this point, and I think we have 26 cars left running. So traffic hopefully shouldn't be quite nearly as bad as it would have been if we had had all 31 still out there on the circuit. Looks like, Cranefoos is in. He's one of our front runners. Santana's going to go on by. Looks like Rosenbaum, you could see in the yellow machine, also in the background, is taking his service.
By the way, it's not unheard of to have crashes on pit exit here.
That's true too. Certainly got to practice that. And if you get those fresh tires, you got to be careful putting your right foot down. So Rosenbaum returns in 16th, a little bit ahead of Christopher Richards, who has also pitted and is the next position back. Most of our leaders have spread apart. So we're going to check a little bit farther behind with Daniel Barnett, who looks like he's just finished his stop. The New Yorker coming back out on track. Looks like he is mostly going to be coming out in traffic that he is not racing with, because the car behind him, Josh Daniels, is taking his service. Unfortunately, these are the leaders that he's coming out with. That's Clenard going by, and David Soroy just behind him now.
And as Josh Daniels comes out of a pits, another JD with 2 first names comes into the pits as James David hits his pit stall from 8th position. And no tires, quick stop.
Would have expected him to be from the south or something, but he's Canadian. 2 first names. James David coming back out just between McLaughlin and Spicer. Looks like Lionel Duprat also taking service. So quite a mixed bag on strategy calls here, Sam. Usually we see a lot of drivers wait until late, but this is... we've barely seen more than 2 or 3 cars pit on the same lap.
Yeah, the bigger thing that surprised me was how quick Josh Daniels' stop was. I've seen some tires being taken here. Some stops are a lot longer, so it will be interesting seeing how everything plays out after the pit cycle. Now, of course, we did see Daniels kind of just riding in 5th for the first opening few laps of this race. I wonder if he was saving fuel at that point.
And Daniels, I wonder if just because maybe he took tires. Duprat, we know, took tires, but he's in long. I wonder if he did get enough damage from that hit that he had with, I'm trying to remember who it was exactly that he got. It was Wildridge, wasn't it, I think? But Duprat must have had to stay in there and get something with his suspension put together better, because that is 42 seconds. That's just way too long for normal service. McLaughlin pitting now as we look at our 2 leaders. Seitz about 0.8 of a second behind Holland. He's held at arm's length and has not been able to attack, but that doesn't mean that these 2 aren't feeling the immense pressure of this race, knowing that after today, there's only 3 more rounds, and Seitz has 39 points to try and make up on David Holland to take this championship. He has to beat him.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, all it takes is 1 DNF from Holland to really close things back in, and we've seen how easy contact and retirements can happen in these cars. So here we go. Holland is coming in. So is this a sign that Seitz has saved a little bit more fuel? And obviously, Seitz is going to need a Schumacher-esque in and out lap here if he wants to do something about getting this lead from Holland.
So Roy also pits. Raymond Day is in. Matt pits. Seitz stays out. So does Clenard and Delp. This must be towards the end of it as Holland really lights him up to get out of his pit stall. He is in a hurry to get going. 6.6 seconds in and out for him.
Nice clear track there on exit. That's going to be a good sight for him.
So Roy, Day, both out without any dramas. We check in on Greg Seitz once more. About half a track ahead now. Still has to take his stop. Armando Edwards is pitting, so is Christopher Richards. We're still waiting on Gunderson and a Bear in the mid-pack to come in.
Seitz has had a pretty clean lap, I would say. I don't know if it's fast, but he hasn't run into any lap traffic. I haven't seen any mistakes out of him. Will he pit this lap, or can he go further in the 74? He's coming to pit entry right now, and he's coming in.
This is the moment of truth. Pushing that entry, trying to get as close as he can. He's going to be followed by Clenard. Is Delp going to be able to go a lap longer? Nope. He's coming in as well. This is the end of the line for everybody. Holland's on the front stretch. Seitz is still in his stall, but he's up at the very first spot. 5 seconds. It's a second quicker. Stationary. Is this going to be enough? Holland's going to have the speed up. Seitz, though, coming around the corner, and I think Greg Seitz has got this.
Yeah, it's an amazing pit stop by Greg Seitz. He is far ahead of David Holland now. So there's two ways Holland can win this race. The first is by running Seitz down and passing him. The second is has Seitz taken enough fuel? I think from what I've seen in this series, these drivers are very smart about knowing just how much fuel they need to get to the finish of a race. I think Seitz is safe on that end, but we'll see what Holland can do, being the chaser, and Greg Seitz having to be the driver, having to watch his mirrors.
Meanwhile, this battle that we're watching on screen, that wasn't a battle right there. That's Lionel DePratt. He was a lap down. But we're on board with Nicholas Delp, who is chasing Kevin Santana in the dark blue and white machine directly in front. They're going to hit more traffic. This is Jay Steffi in front of them. And he's not pulling out of the way here. He's going to want to give them the way through soon so that he doesn't hold them up. And he's going to get a great opportunity out of the junction. So they start to climb the hill. Unfortunately for Delp, this is going to give Santana a nice little slipstream at the start of it. He's going to do a double dip of it as he pulls back and takes another breath of air off the back of Steffi. Now Jay finally pulls out of the way, and Delp, who follows through, is able to keep contact with Santana, but needs to get closer before he can attack.
So the gap between our two leaders at the line last lap was 1.1 seconds. And Joe, one thing all these drivers battling for these positions have got to be aware of now with the lap traffic is the fact that they're starting to catch lap traffic involved in battles. There's a good battle going on between Mike Richter and Daniel Barnett for 21st and 22nd, and they're battling that, switching that position back and forth while all the leaders are trying to put them a lap down.
Yeah, Raymond Day was the one that unfortunately just had to go by. And then they've actually got the battle we were just watching right behind them between Santana and Delp. Ooh, big lockup there from Barnett.
Yeah, these are the instances I like to call the perfect storm. Two battles that may or may not be related to each other meeting on track.
They're not going to meet quite yet as they come out of the junction, but Santana continues to gain ground on Barnett. He's going to hope that Barnett does not climb his way back forward because he's dropped off of Richter by about 3/4 of a second. Delp still using that draft of the number 666 in front of him. Into the Senna S this time. different lines between the two drivers swinging into the corner, but pretty similar on their way out.
Yeah, that's a warm draft that Delp is getting from that 666 car, and he might make the most of it by looking down the inside of him and going.
And
Oh, who's that?
that's
Black
Richter.
car.
There goes
Oh,
that
don't
battle.
pull in front of the leaders. He's going to pull in front of the leaders, coming back on track. That was almost disaster for James David there. Now, how is James David all the way back in ninth? I thought he'd had a quick stop.
Remember, he had a spin at one point. I think he had troubles that we did document. There was Richter's issue, and there, that orange car is David having to take a quick juke to keep from running into the rear wing of that red machine.
Orange's glad he's avoided that. That it didn't come out right. Hey, you know what's happening, Joe? The leaders are catching each other.
So this is interesting here, Sam, because Seitz did the same thing to Holland before the pit stops, and now we see Holland doing the same thing to Seitz. So who's the real quickest car?
I don't know, but I think Seitz needs to make sure he wins this race.
Yeah, I think you're right. He probably knows it too. This is all or nothing for him, essentially. Granted, it won't mean that the season is over, but he's got to fight to finish ahead of Holland, who's been dominating with 5 wins out of the 6 rounds so far. Seitz has only taken a single victory, and really he would have been a lot closer in the points if it were not for the fact that he had that ghost contact at the Southern Loop last week.
Yeah, and you know, Holland may opt to just ride behind Seitz. I don't think that's going to happen, judging by the fact that he's already sticking his nose out on the inside going into the hairpin. But, you know, even if Holland did choose to just ride behind Seitz until the end of a race, he could try and slipstream him, do a shake and bake move almost to take a wing going out on the final lap, but he's going to get him right here. Seitz did not get a good X out of a final turn, and I would not be surprised if Seitz is leading by the time they get into turn 1, Joe. Or maybe not. I thought Holland was going to be able to clear him and Seitz was going to be able to pick up his draft, but that's not what's happening. Seitz is side drafting him. He's got the racing line here, but Holland still has a nose in front.
Still side by side, wheel to wheel as they swing it through, and Seitz will have it back. You were off by a corner. It was out of turn 2 that he squeaked through, and Holland is going to try and give it another go as he climbs up back to that gearbox, takes a look to the inside, but then comes back to the racing line.
Yeah, Holland, I think, has to be a little bit more cautious than Seitz does here. Maybe that's why he backed out so much in turn 2. Seitz has the inside line. This isn't the first time we've seen them go side by side through that corner this race, although it's been a while, so Seitz holds on for now as they get very close in the narrowest part of a race circuit. We've already seen disaster strike here earlier today. David Soroy, by the way, continues to be the driver running around in 3rd place if this all ends in tears. So let's see what happens this time.
You have to wonder, too, does David Holland maybe need to resist the urge to fight this much? Because, as I said, to get ahead of him, actually, it's going to be almost 10 points more, because Soroy was 9 points more. Seitz will need to outscore him by 10 points on average every race, including this one. So if Holland stays behind him, which he has no intention of doing so as he goes side by side again, if he continues to finish behind him, he'll win this championship anyways. And once again, it doesn't quite work out.
Joe, honest question here, because I'm sure some viewers are wondering it at home. Which line is the finish line?
It is the first one that they come across back there. As they just went across it there on screen. We're watching the 58. This is Nicholas Delp, who doesn't have Santana with him anymore. In fact, Matt has gone by at some point that we missed. In fact, that was just when we switched to it. That was up the front stretch, a simple slipstream pass, so don't need to watch that one. Jean-Francois Matt comes back up to where he started this race and actually demotes Delp back to where he started this race. Just restoring order.
Yeah, it's almost like absolutely nothing has happened, but of course it's been far from the truth. We've had plenty of passes and battles throughout this race. So I almost wonder, Joe, if you're someone like David Holland, who's just riding, well, he's not riding around in second, but he's in second right now. Are you trying to experiment here? See if you can take the lead with the draft, with the toe, before you get to that first line. So I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I think it is hard to do because there they go, across the line, and Sights had him. Only by a hundredth, but oh boy, what's going to happen in turn one here? I was just watching the race to the line. Of course, right now, though, it's continuing through the S's, but Sights holds on to it.
Absolutely. And he's been making some gutsy defenses. And credit to these two drivers, despite having contact twice now, once at Suzuka in the very first round and then once at Interlagos. Granted, I believe both times had a little bit of netcode involved. There's some immense respect between the two. I have not yet heard these two really get angry at one another. It seems like there's just a immense amount of respect between each other's skills.
Absolutely, for them to be able to race this close, because even you can always blame netcode, Joe, but if you do get involved in two incidents with the same person and netcode has something to do with it both times, in the back of your mind you've got to think, oh well, I might want to give this driver a bit of a wider berth in the future. But I don't think we've been seeing any of that today. And let's see if Holland tries the same this lap. So last lap, as I mentioned, when they got to that finish line, which is right as they go by the left-hander kink at the back of a grid, Holland was a hundredth of a second short. This lap is actually going to be a bit further back. But what can he do into turn one? He's definitely going for it again.
No, he breaks a little early that time, it seems. So does he go side by side?
I think he saw it wasn't on. He was too far back. But maybe in turn four, that won't be the case.
I wonder if he was setting himself up for here, because Sight's already going defensive, knowing he's going to have a good run down the Retta Aposta side by side. If he manages to hold on to it, it'll give him the inside of Ferradura. And once again, he manages to carry the speed. The drag race that they've had multiple times is going to return into Ferradura. And on the outside, Greg Sights is yet to make this one stick. This time, though, he's going to try for it. He somehow found it outside of the double apexer. It switches back to the left side through the little orange, and he's just not quite there.
Oh, Sights did not have a good exit out of that corner. He's got a hand with Holland here. He's got to try and get it back.
And the laps are running out now as well. 4 minutes left. Going to be close to 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes when they cross the line.
That's 3 laps.
Running about minute 26 around here. They come across the line. Yeah, about 3:45 left on the clock. Look at them dive across the track there. Sights trying to stay right in the tire tracks of Holland.
He needs to try a bit harder. Holland's putting a little bit of a gap between them.
As this has been going on, David Soroy you can see, is gained a little bit with this back and forth battling. It was about 3 seconds before. It's now down to 2.3. He wants them to keep this up.
Well, he's going to have to turn into a big Greg Sights fan, because Holland's got a few car lengths between them. By the way, Rod Clenard, only a couple seconds back from Soroy as well, have more battles going on in the middle of the field.
Delp, oh man, Delp's not having the best of days. He's gone from fighting with Santana to losing out to Matt, and now James David has ran him down after his problems. David, we expect to have a little bit more pace since he made his spin earlier and qualified a little bit up on Delp. On board with James David. They come through the hairpin. He's sticking very close to him. He gets a nice launch off of this left-hander here. The junction, he could have something. And he does. Oh, wow, a very good launch. Here he comes.
Yeah, they'll be coming to 2 laps left to go as they cross the line.
He's on the outside, so it's the longer line. He's going to have to duck back into that slipstream, get a second taste of it. Delp holding the inside as they now approach the Senna S. Deeper on the brakes just a little bit for the orange car of James David, but he unfortunately is not able to stick with it.
Oh, let's see how these
here,
guys come out of this section, because I'll tell you, the leaders will be battling by the time they get back around to the front straight, but they're in the infield now. This battle is on now, and oh boy, right now David coming out on top.
So Delp goes down another position. As long as he keeps decent pace, I can't see Delp losing another, because Crane Foos is 8.5 seconds back. Okay, so let's head over to Holland, because he's just coming out.
Oh, big moment for Sights.
Right. Lot of wheel spin. He's not going to get the draft. Let's go to the replay real quick so that we've got some time to watch this, because this could have decided the race right here.
I think it did.
He was starting to lose it even on the way in, it looked like.
Yeah, well, Sights was really going to have to throw his car around. He wasn't able to keep up with Holland. He was losing a bit of distance, and he knew that was really one of his last great opportunities to get Holland's draft and really fight him for the win on this final lap. As it stands, though, it looks like Holland is going to walk away with max points. Sights is going to be just a little short. As you mentioned, Joe, this isn't going to be the end of a championship, but this is not what Sights wanted.
Well, the good news is it isn't technically max points for David Holland, because he didn't get that pole, the bonus for pole. But, I mean, that's little consolation here, I think. Ooh,
that was, yeah, Dre
car.
Steffi. Yeah, Dre Steffi was already a lap down. He's trying to limp it back to the finish line with the left front wheel all hanging off at the wrong angle.
Sights gained about a 10th this lap, but that's too little too late. Because as they come up to the junction, Les Holland himself has a bit of a slip, which he does not. It looks like Sights is not going to be close enough to do anything to David Holland. Past the water tower and past Subidos dos Boxes, the number 18 with another victory despite not getting pole for the second week in a row.
Oh boy, Dre Steffi is being caught at the worst possible time for the battle from 6th on back. I could have held up Kevin Santana a little bit. Yeah, Dre really needs to just pull his car off. He's the last car 1 lap down anyway. He's not going to lose any positions, but it's created some great little scraps going down to the line, but no change for position.
Yep, Santana stays 6th, Matt in 7th. David holds off Delp. Let's see if we got any other close ones. I think 15th and 16th between Richards and Felton might come down to the line.
Yeah. So we got a battle for 11th as well. No, it looks like that's been resolved. Rosenbaum's going to get 12th. So here's a battle for 16th that you just mentioned with Christopher Richards, who has gotten by Trey Felton this lap, and it looks like he's going to be able to hold on to it.
Yeah, just in the crucial moment, he stretches away. Oh, but he's slow. He's slow. Is he out of fuel? He might be out of fuel. Jay Felton's going to get it back anyways. Oh, disaster at the line for the 49. Sputters across. Last one on the lead lap. It's going to be Matthew Gunderson, the number 33, after starting this race, and 31st without a qualifying lap. So that's going to take us to a quick break. We're going to come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around, because on screen you'll see all the upcoming races here on GSRC. Welcome back to Interlagos as we just watched round 7 for the PRL Formula 3 Championship. And it was David Holland taking his 6th win out of those 7 rounds. Greg Seitz was quicker on 1-lap pace. He took another pole. That gives him at least some bonus points right there, which unfortunately won't mean quite as much. And he will still be outscored by Holland today with that 2nd place. Apparently, he had some netcode when we saw him take a little bit of an erratic move at one point. We'll talk about that later. Soroy finished in 3rd, climbing from 5th. That was a good day for the number 19. Rod Clenard with a 4th place was followed by Raymond Day in P5. Kevin Santana, well, we were surprised at his qualifying. I guess he was too, because he managed to go from 9th to 6th. Jean-Francois Matt winds up in 7th place, and James David, after climbing back forward, was only able to recover to 8th place. Nicholas Delp took 9th, and Daniel Cranefoos with the 10th place.
Yeah, and then in 11th position, we had Sebastian Pro ahead of Sheldon Rosenbaum in 12th place. Owen McLaughlin came home in 13th ahead of Tyler Gore. 15th place was Armando Edwards ahead of Jay Felton. Christopher Richards in 17th. Matthew Gunderson rounds out the cars on the lead lap in 18th position. 1 lap down, we have Joshua Daniels ahead of Lionel DePrap.
And then from there on down, it's all lap down cars. Some of the multiple that did manage to finish, but many others that unfortunately DNF today. Seemed like it was a very troubling circuit. But for David Holland, he certainly had good pace out there. David, another the 2nd week in a row where you didn't take the pole, but you took the victory in the end. So I guess that's the one that matters.
Yeah, I'll definitely take that. I was wheeling my butt off out there tonight. I think Greg ultimately had the faster car. I think, just shown by qualifying and his race pace. I think we just kind of got lucky out there tonight. He made a few mistakes, and my goal was to keep it clean and consistent, and that seemed to work out.
Now, in the pit stops, Greg managed to get that lead back, and even though he had a 2nd quicker pit stop than you, I didn't think that it would make that much of a difference. Did you have any mistakes or errors on your inner outlaps during the pit stop cycle?
No, but I haven't confirmed it yet, but I think that Greg didn't take tires, and for me on the outlap, I took tires, and so just still trying to get them up to temp and whatnot. It's always a little bit slower, so I think that might have been what happened, but I'm not 100% sure yet.
That's something we didn't notice there. So that could have made the difference. Well, this certainly sets you up pretty well, because 3 rounds to go, and I believe it'll be 40-plus points that Seitz is behind. And I know you usually say that you're mostly just out here for fun, but I mean, do you feel safe in the championship at this point, or are you always looking over that shoulder?
Oh, I don't think you're ever safe until it's done. I mean, all it takes is 2 bad weeks, and Greg's right back in this thing. So definitely got to keep pushing.
All right. Well, congratulations. Anybody you'd like to thank before you go?
Yeah, definitely got to thank PRL for organizing, NinjaTrader for sponsoring, you guys at GSRC for the broadcast. It's always super fun to watch, and you guys do a great professional job. And the team, Vantage Esports, got to thank the wife for being a good sport, and also thank Greg for being an awesome competitor. Really hard and really clean racing, and that had a lot of fun.
And there you have it. Like we were saying before, Holland and Seitz with a lot of respect for one another. That was our winner. We have 2nd place.
Well, somehow our commentator removed himself from the booth. But here we are. We've got Greg Seitz for 2nd place here. Well, Greg, I know 99% of drivers would be content with a good finish, but I got to imagine in the championship you were really hoping for that win today.
Yeah, definitely. I've had terrible luck with netcode again today on lap 10, I think it was. I almost lost my race there. I lost a bunch of time and dropped behind the the second David. So I had to kind of fight my way back after that. But yeah, I just had really terrible luck. But not to take anything away from David's win, it was a great victory for him. He fought super hard and just bested me today.
I know that netcode set you back time-wise. Did it damage your car at all? Do you think had that near contact happened on lap 10 or whatever happened, that, had that not happened, do you think that race could have been yours?
I don't know if it really did any damage to me, but I certainly would have been closer and definitely could have used that. I think I lost over a second, and then because I had to fight David Soroy to kind of get back into position, and it let David get away by I think a little over a second. So I certainly could have used that second back later.
Absolutely. Well, you had a thrilling battle going all the way until just the start of the final lap. It looked like you were just a little bit too fast going through the final turn on the run up the hill as you came to the white flag.
Yeah, I knew I had to get a good run, and weirdly that turn, I was starting to kind of get tense on that turn. I don't know why, but I was all through practice, no problem. But I started having kind of second guessing myself there, and again there, I knew I had to have a really good run, but I pushed it a little too hard and then lost that time there. So yeah, I was kind of race over at that point.
Well, I'm assuming your approach for the final 3 races of the season isn't going to change a whole lot, considering that mathematically you're still in this championship battle. What happens now between you and David? Good fun?
Yeah, I think we always have good fun. He's a really clean guy and really clean races. But yeah, unfortunately, 3 races this season, well, 2 for sure were taken out by netcode, and then this one kind of hampered me a little bit. So I think it could have been a whole different story, but it's going to be really, really tough to have any possible chance of beating him. He'd have to have the same kind of luck I had.
Well, yin yang, tit for tat. Who knows? We obviously don't wish the worst on David. We hope you guys continue to slug it out for 3 great races throughout the rest of the season. But all I'll say is this to you, Greg, and that's best of luck. And we hope, you'll still be able to mount a bit of a championship charge here in the closing few rounds and put on some awesome shows for us.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'm definitely not going to change my approach. I'll push really hard, and in fact, I have even less to lose now, so I might push a little harder.
That was Greg Seitz, our second place finisher.
And David Soroy not able to talk to us, but we do have the driver that finished 4th behind him, Rod Clenard, ready to talk about his race. And Rod, you had some great battles too, but from our end, it looked like there was a bit of connection issues along the way. Were you noticing anything on your end? Oh, might have connection issues. Right now.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Yeah. Rod, one more check. Do you have a copy? I think Rod might need to go get a new router or something out there. We'll give him a little bit longer here to see if he can get this sorted out, because we do want to talk to him with all the fun he had out there with Soroy. So doesn't look like we're hearing anything from him, so I'm not sure that we'll be able to talk to Rod, which is a bit of a shame. We'll come back to him next week if he manages to get things sorted out and try and talk to him then. But before that, we got to thank a few people and close up, including our sponsor. Once again, a big thanks to NinjaTrader. You can find them at NinjaTrader.com if you want to try and get a hold of their services. Highly recommended. And of course, a big thank you to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and subscribe when you get the opportunity. Just click the big red button that says so. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts. They're listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Sam, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook, Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram is at GSRC_Ram. Going to be a very punishing track next week. Brands Hatch in the F3. That'll be wild. Thursday, February 13th, if you want to watch that, kicks off at 9 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.